You are now watching the True Mets Talk podcast live stream. We will be going live shortly. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
Shallow right field, stumbling start for Stewart. That's thrown to deep left field by Alvarez. He's homered in 4 straight games for the second time in he's homered in 4.
What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP, and welcome back to another episode of the True Mets Talk Day After Recap. It's another early afternoon day stream here on a Monday, a beautiful June 17th day. I'm feeling good. The Mets are feeling good. I went on my morning run, and I'm ready to talk about some New York Mets baseball ahead of tonight's game. The Mets are heading down south to Texas to take on the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers, and we'll be talking about that series preview in this live stream. We'll be talking a little bit about the game that we saw yesterday. Obviously, don't want to exhaust the Padres series too much. Obviously, we talked about on the roundtable. If you missed the roundtable last night on the channel, make sure you go ahead and check that out. And as always, I definitely appreciate the support, everyone being here. Hit that thumbs up on this live stream. Get this stream to 20 likes. I definitely appreciate it. I understand everybody's got work. Hopefully, you all can join me right now in the live chat. But if you're watching the replay, make sure you hit that thumbs up as well. And hit that live chat with your thoughts and opinions about our New York Mets right now, winners of 5 in a row as we head to Texas to take on those Texas Rangers. And right now, the vibes are immaculate. I don't really know how any Mets fan wouldn't want to ride this wave that we're on right now. I understand that this doesn't mean the Mets are going to continue this pace of play for the foreseeable future, but right now, apparently, we've entered into the Grimace era. I didn't even know who Grimace was. But I got some help from my buddy here, Daniel, in my X account, and apparently he or she is a McDonald's mascot. I was not aware. I don't know anything about it, but nonetheless, I think some thanks are in order to Grimace for this win streak. But nonetheless, let's talk about some Mets baseball, obviously, because we saw an offensive barrage yesterday against the San Diego Padres in that third game of the series. You see here the box score. You see Mr. Tyler McGill and his stat line as well. This is beautiful baseball right here. If I want to see anything from the New York Mets continue as we head into the 6-game road trip in Texas and then Chicago, it's what I see in this box score right here. Obviously, outside of Starling Marte, everybody had a hit in this lineup. The bottom of the lineup is working great at bats. The top of the lineup, they're working great at bats. And the run production, the results are there after they're following. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. And it doesn't really matter at what point in the game that the Mets find themselves in needing runs, whether it's early, you get a Pete Alonso home run. Whether it's late, when the Padres cut it to 1, you get a Luis Torrens home run, clutch home run, and some runs thereafter to make it 11-6 heading into that 9th inning. This is absolutely beautiful baseball to watch, and we talked about it yesterday about this offense clicking on all cylinders. They're finally clicking on all cylinders, and it's an absolute joy to watch. Just want to shout out everybody in the chat right now here joining with me. Darren Rivera, obviously always supporting the podcast. Definitely appreciate you. Like and subscribe to CP's Mets and Knicks. Absolutely. Daniel, I appreciate you. Grims is our good luck. Wait until the Hamburglar Fry Kids officer, Big Mac, McNugget, Buddy Mac tonight hit the scene. If you know, you know. There's a whole bunch of McDonald's references there. And honestly, I'm just going to ride this wave here with Grimace and the Mets, and I'm going to leave it up to Daniel and everybody else putting in the McDonald's references here. But whatever helps this team win. I even saw the McDonald's official Twitter account comment under the Mets post from yesterday saying, "Sweep," with about 4 or 5 E's. I love it. Like I said, this is the sights and sounds of a team that's playing good baseball in New York City, right? Everything else, the marketing and all the other hype surrounding this team, therefore follows. And I know this team is 33 and 37. We are all well aware of that, whether it's myself, Rob, Hayden, Hector. Like I said, if you missed the roundtable, go check it out and hit the thumbs up on that stream. Good turnout. Appreciate you all closing out your Sunday yesterday with the Mets Roundtable podcast. But we are not naive to that fact that this team still has a lot of work to do. Just because they're playing good baseball right now doesn't mean, like I said, they're going to continue this, and doesn't mean that they don't have certain aspects and areas of this roster that still need to be cleaned up. That is obviously a given. And I'm going to work through here in the comment section. I'm going to make this a very short stream. I promise you, every single time I put a little time limit on myself, whether it's 25 or 30 minutes, I always go beyond. But I'm going to make this very short and sweet because we do have baseball tonight. No Mets pregame today. Pay attention to a potential post game, whether it's with myself or myself and Rob. Still trying to get some scheduling issues worked out for tonight, but make sure you turn on those notifications as well. Ethan, salute to you. Appreciate you being here. Brad, I appreciate you being here as well. Talking about Vientos needing a big hit in this series. He's obviously been struggling here as of recent, batting average down below 300. We never expected that consistent play, that hot streak that Vientos found when he got called up to sort of maintain itself. We know Vientos is a good hitter. I'm not expecting him to be a consistent 300 hitter in this league. Also, by the virtue of him still chasing pitches out of the zone, I think the hits will come, the home runs will come, but obviously, I don't think he's going to be a consistent 300 hitter. I just want to see solid at-bats. And this is a good comment by Daniel because obviously we talked about a lot of people yesterday. Hector made it a point to talk about Mr. Francisco Alvarez and just how good this starting rotation has looked with Francisco Alvarez back in this lineup behind home plate. Now, I understand that Luis Torrens in this particular ball game that's on the screen, this 11-6 victory, was the starting catcher yesterday for Tyler McGill. But nonetheless, you see it in the two starts prior with Jose Quintana and Sean Manaea, two guys that have consistently struggled in their last couple of starts, more or less. What happens as soon as Francisco Alvarez is back? You see the location, the communication behind the plate is just clicking with them. A lot of times I saw, especially in Sean Manaea's start, him setting up in the zone and Sean Manaea consistently hitting that target for some put away pitches. And even if they weren't put away pitches, just him hitting those targets and catching those hitters off balance, changing their eye levels, make all the difference in the world. So absolutely, Daniel, although he's not consistently getting it done with the bat just yet, we know the pop that his bat has, 25 home runs last year in his rookie campaign. It hasn't really materialized yet so far, but you know what? His defensive production and what he's able to do for this rotation is just night and day different than, let's say, maybe even a Tomas Nido, who held it down pretty well, not as good as Francisco Alvarez, but light years beyond Omar Narvaez as well. We needed this in the most possible way because the starters are not only doing better, but because the starters are now doing better, you have the bullpen that's able to rest a little bit easier, and they're able to do better in turn as well. So great comment here. Christopher saying, CP, remember they're the World Series champions. You should be concerned. I am not concerned in the slightest bit, Christopher, because you know what? My mantra right now for the New York Mets is they are playing with house money. There is no pressure, as JD Martinez told this team and what he told the media that he told this team in that team player only meeting. There is no pressure on the New York Mets right now. Nobody really had high expectations coming in, minus maybe myself, Rob, and a few other select Mets fans. And nobody around the league has set high expectations for this team. So why should we be concerned about the opponent? Why us as fans, one, shouldn't be concerned. It should be the team that's concerned, obviously. But why should the New York Mets be concerned about who they're playing against? They're riding a hot streak right now. They performed well at home, finally. We've been trying to ask these questions and get these answers of why they can't perform at Citi Field, why they can't hit at Citi Field. Well, they did just that, going 5-1 on this latest homestand. So why should they be concerned or scared about who they are playing? It's not a concern to me, and it shouldn't be a concern to the New York Mets. I understand where you're coming from. The Rangers are defending World Series champions, understood. Their bats are a little underperforming right now. That whole team right now is a little bit underperforming out there in Texas coming off of World Series championship, but there's no reason why the Mets should be concerned. Go out there, play your game, and the results will follow. And if they don't, guess what? There's still no pressure on this team, regardless of how you chop it up. I don't know if anybody feels like that. Obviously, Christopher, I know you feel a certain way about needing to be concerned if you're the Mets, but the rest of us Mets fans, can you tell me in the chat, do you think this Mets team feels or should feel any pressure right now? With the expectations that were set in, knowing that JD Martinez, who is clearly, with his veteran leadership, one of the true leaders on this team, alongside maybe you hear Adam Ottavino has a lot of respect in the locker room, Francisco Lindor obviously calling that players-only meeting. Should they feel pressure? Because I don't think they should. So what you're saying is it's not the same Rangers team. No, it is the same Rangers team, maybe outside of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom not being there. And those guys aren't really there regularly from the start with their injuries, etc., that they've been sustaining lately in their careers. But for the most part, especially that offense, it is the same group of guys. They are underperforming. You have your usual suspects over there like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, who are doing very well. Adolis Garcia has 13 home runs, still has that pop in his bat, but he's hitting 216 on a little bit of a slide. Jonah Heim's there. Wyatt Langford's there. Couple other guys are there from that World Series team. It's the same team, but they're underperforming. So I don't really think the Mets should feel any pressure at all. And even if the Rangers were performing like defending World Series champions, my whole entire point of this, and I definitely respect what your point is, Christopher, like I said, because the Mets want to perform well. But what my whole point is while you are 5-0 in your last 5-1 in the homestand, you've won 11 out of your last 15 games as the New York Mets. Why would you automatically, with this glimpse of success that you've had here recently, start to put pressure on yourselves? Why would you do that? I don't think it makes any sense. So I agree. Like Aaron's saying here, just play the game of baseball and have fun. The wins will keep coming. And this Mets team is not bad on paper. We've been saying this even through the bad stretches so far in this early 2024 season. They are better on paper than what they're displaying, which is why it's so frustrating to have seen the Mets falter as much as they have, especially in close ball games this season. There's a lot of one-run, two-run ball games that the Mets have lost late in the 8th and 9th innings that if you turn even half of those around into W's, we're talking about this Mets team in a different light. So I don't agree that there should be any pressure. I think they just need to play their game like Aaron is saying here, and the results will follow. And like I said, if the results don't follow, then what? You're not living up to what expectations that were put already in place for you. Zero. There's no expectations for this team. So I know that's a little bit of a cheap way out in terms of explaining it, but it makes sense to me. We spent the whole offseason talking about tempering expectations, lowering expectations. After the previous couple years, the expectations were sky high. So that's where I'm at with it. Anyways, Lindor, great to see him continuing this success here recently in the leadoff spot. Hits the home run, gets 2 RBIs. Brandon Nimmo, we'll talk about him in the next slide, but he goes 3 for 5 with 2 runs scored. JD Martinez, 2 for 3. He absolutely keeps raking with 2 walks there. The thing about JD Martinez is that he will hit the ball in the gaps, but he will also take his walks. He has one of the better eyes on this Mets team at the plate, and that is a true professional hitter at work every single at bat. Not afraid to take his bases, and that has made all the difference in the world. He has set the table for these top 4 in terms of actually turning it around, and he has carried this team on his back for the couple of games that he has done so during this winning streak, and it's been much, much needed So shout out to JD Martinez. Obviously, we'll get into discussions about this team surrounding the deadline. I don't want to talk deadline. Nobody should be talking deadline right now. It's June 17th. We're over a month and a half away still from the deadline. Let's put that to rest and let's talk about a game tonight, and let's take it one game at a time that I see a lot of Mets fans in this chat over the past couple of streams have been talking about. One game at a time. I like it. I like that concept. Pete Alonso. How about Pete Alonso? 2 for 5, home run, 5 RBIs on the day. I know Subway to Shea Anthony is going live here about at 4 p.m. He was the player of the game for Mr. Anthony from Subway to Shea podcast, 5 RBIs. Pete Alonso, a lot of discussions have been happening surrounding Pete Alonso, his upcoming free agency, his lack of performance. I believe he's got about 15 to 16 home runs. I don't have it quite right in front of me, but nonetheless, the bat hasn't been up to par with what we expect Pete Alonso to produce. It hasn't been. And by the way, before I continue this spiel here and before we get into the next slide, obviously, like I said, I'm about 16 minutes in. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I always seem to ramble. I'm sorry. I can't help it. It won't change. There is a live chat poll. I'm going to do these more frequently with my live chats and the streams that I do solo. In this upcoming Rangers series, I want everybody that's on the YouTube channel right now in the live chat to answer that live poll. I asked you all in this upcoming Rangers series, which Mets starting pitcher is going to have the most strikeouts for this team? Is it going to be David Peterson, who's going tonight? Is it going to be Luis Severino, who gets the ball in the middle game? Or is it going to be Sean Manaea, who is coming off of a really impressive start his last go around with, I believe, about 7 strikeouts? So who is it going to be? Answer that live chat poll for me. I definitely appreciate you all. But no, like I said, even Starling Marte with an 0 for 4 day drawing a walk, like that doesn't matter because you have most of these guys hitting their stride. Now, like I said, this is a very short sample size, so I'm not going to say that this lineup is officially back because for all we know, the lineup can go out there today against John Gray and lay an egg and put up 1 run. So we need to see consistency, but it's good to finally see not only the bottom of the lineup performing, not only the top of the lineup performing, but both parts of the lineup performing. It's great to see, even with Vientos cooling off, even with Marte going 0 for 4, right? You see Luis Torrens step up, have that clutch home run in the later innings to provide some cushioning. Harrison Bader. Listen, I haven't talked Harrison Bader extensively, but if you know about my podcast, the True Mets Talk podcast, my off-season podcast that I've talked about this team on, you all know that I was a little bit hesitant to sort of go into this Harrison Bader signing, and I really wasn't impressed with Harrison Bader, how he started off this season. And I was very wary because I was like, listen, this guy is one of the best center fielders in the game of baseball defensively, but offensively, what is he going to give us? And Harrison Bader has shut my mouth. And I am beyond ecstatic. And especially in a role where he doesn't really play every day. You have Tyrone Taylor there. You have off days scheduled for him where Nimmo can slot back over to center field. Like, he is an everyday player more or less, but he does have routine off days where his backup plays or he just gets the day off, right? Especially when you take into consideration matchups, etc. But this guy has been quietly just putting up a 270 batting average, always in the hit score, in the box score, whenever I see it. And he's been flying under the radar for me as a Mets player that I was once wary of in terms of the offensive production, turning into a real consistent end of the lineup or lower end of the lineup type bat for the New York Mets. So I wanted to give props to Harrison Bader because when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I just have to admit that. So shout out to Harrison Bader. And obviously that bullet, and I forgot who hit it. I don't think it was Donovan Solano. It might have been, that was hit straight to center field. If Harrison Bader doesn't jump on to catch that ball, I understand he got a bad read on it. Those balls that are a line drive shot hit right at you. I don't know what the exit velocity on it was. Those are one of the toughest balls to read, especially as a center fielder. So for him to recuperate himself in that situation where the game-tying run is on second base and potentially what could turn into a triple or an inside the park home run for a go-ahead run for the Padres, that was a crucial play in center field to make for Harrison Bader. That scared me a lot. I don't want to see him have to make it so difficult all the time just like that. But what matters is that he caught the ball. And that's what all that matters. So, like I said, if you're in here, I appreciate you all. Hit that thumbs up for me. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Vote in the live chat poll, all that good stuff. It is 2:51 on a Monday, and there's no better time to talk about some New York Mets baseball early in our days before we have a couple of hours break. Maybe the lineup gets released here in an hour or two, and we're ready and set for some Mets baseball at 8:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time later tonight. Tyler McGill deserves some props, man. He deserves his flowers as well. 5 solid innings, 5 hits given up, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and 2 walks. He hasn't wowed me per se. The defense behind him has been a little lackluster as well. But if we can consistently get this version of Tyler McGill that we saw against the Padres, I don't care if he goes 6 innings. I quite frankly have said this many times. I do not care at this point if this Mets starting rotation goes 6 innings or not. More often than not, maybe if your name's Christian Scott or not Christian Scott or Luis Severino, I'm not really expecting you to get to the 6th inning. David Peterson, Sean Manaea, and Tyler McGill, 3 names in this rotation that I do not expect to give me 6+ innings. Would it be nice? Yes. But for me, that ship has sailed. I'm no longer expecting it. I'm expecting 5 solid innings. You keep your team in the ball game, and the bullpen does its magic after that. So to get this type of start from Tyler McGill, who's kind of faltered a little bit in his previous 2 starts prior to this start against San Diego, was really good to see. Really good to see. All right, here's the next slide because, like I said, it's a sweep. We needed to sweep those guys in San Diego. They've been giving the Mets fits over the last couple of years, especially in that wild card series in 2022. Really good to see a sweep at home. And we got to talk about Mr. Adrian Hauser and Brandon Nimmo. But before we do, I'm going to get into some more of the comments here in the live chat. Aaron saying, give me more Tyrone Taylor. I agree. I like Tyrone Taylor as a ball player. He's got years of control with the Mets going forward. It was a great move for David Stearns to bring in Tyrone Taylor and Mr. Adrian Hauser over together, who we'll talk about here in this slide. Absolutely just a fantastic offseason move, especially when you take into account what Adrian Hauser has done out of the bullpen here, especially in his last 5 outings, as you see here right on your screen. So let's get this stream to at least 20 likes. Like I said, if you're over on X watching this, come over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and hit the live chat because I want to know what y'all's thoughts and opinions are about this Mets team right now. I can sit here and ramble all day long, but I want to make it interactive. So are you hyped for this upcoming road trip? Does this Mets team bring some excitement to you? Are you a little bit wary of what's to come? Are you not fully bought in yet? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Ricardo saying, CP, don't mind the rambling. You're one of the few podcasters that engage your audience and reply to us. Yes, and that's never going to stop, Ricardo. Doesn't quite matter. I might not be able to get to everybody's comments because there are actually so much more comments that I'm getting now than I did months ago. Obviously, increased subscribers, increased engagement, and I appreciate you all for it. But I still like to go through the list and reply to you all as much as possible. So, like I said, rest assured, that is not stopping because I really do. And I'm very interested to hear what you all think as well, in addition to what I have to say about this team. That's not going to change. So I appreciate you. Ricardo's also saying that Bader's offense has been better than expected. 100%, Ricardo. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times that I was getting on Harrison Bader's case early on in this 2024 season. Like I said, he started off out of the gate like, okay, but I was like, I need more out of this guy and Harrison Bader than what we've been getting so far at that point in the season. But ever since then, I kind of shut my mouth about him, and I just been kind of watching him from afar, and I was just like, listen, this guy's performing. I got no gripes with him. He's a starting center fielder, so be it. That's it. So I agree. And this is the key with Harrison Bader. Stay injury-free, and his availability is the best thing that can come out of that signing for the New York Mets for this 1-year deal worth $10 million. Just him being available, because I always talk about this outfield. We have Tyrone Taylor. We have Harrison Bader, Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, some of the guys that are waiting in the wings in the minor leagues, right? It's a serviceable outfield, especially when you take a look at the merry-go-round rotation that David Stearns has set up and set Carlos Mendoza up with in terms of having those options. I like it a lot, 100%. Let's see here. Daniel Caps, did you change your username because Hector couldn't say your username on the live stream yesterday? I remember it was Daniel Caps Keaton yesterday. Just because Hector said he can't say that long of a username, and what is it with you guys or your YouTube usernames, doesn't mean you got to change it. Shout out to you, though. I appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you for being here. Listen, this is a great comment by Brad, and I'm going to star this because I'm going to talk about this in this next slide when I talk a little bit more about tonight's game. Hold this thought, Brad. I'm going to get back to this 100%. Ethan saying McGill just needs to stop playing around with 2 strikes. He always gets to it and then can't put him away. Ethan, it's like almost that you've been watching my streams for the past few months, which I know you have, and I appreciate your support. But whenever Sean Manaea comes up, because he does the same thing, McGill, Peterson, those 3 guys. And it's a coincidence how I never expect 6 innings plus, like I just said, out of those 3 guys, right? Because they always do this. And McGill's been a little bit better at it, I will say. In terms of putting those guys away with 5 strikeouts, you see it here, or you see in the last slide against the Padres. He's been a little bit better at it, but still, when you have 2 strikes, when you're 0-2, 1-2 in a pitcher's count, why are we wasting non-competitive pitches? I'm not saying to put it in the strike zone, because throwing a ball in the strike zone doesn't mean, or throwing the ball out of the strike zone doesn't always mean it's not competitive. Throw it around the strike zone and induce some swing and miss on a ball out of the zone, but make it competitive. And I agree with you. McGill could do a better job at this. Manaea could do a better job at this, and so could Peterson. And I hope that we see more of that out of Peterson. And I hope that Francisco Alvarez and his presence back there kind of fixes this comment in a nutshell. So great comment by Ethan as well, 100%. There we go. Saw some Jose Buto talk here. We're still kind of waiting for him to come up as well. There you go. There's Aaron, and that's how he's feeling about this team, taking 2 of 3 from the Texas Rangers. I like it. All you got to do is win the series, as we said on the roundtable yesterday. So like I said, hit that thumbs up. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. Get this stream to 20 likes, as Darren said earlier. Let's talk about Adrian Hauser. His last 5 outings out of the bullpen have been fantastic. We saw him in this past game going 2 innings, I believe only giving up 1 earned run. A lot of people were pissed off about why Mendoza decided to take him out of the game for Jake Diekman, because that's kind of where things fell apart for this bullpen and this Mets team. You saw Jake Diekman only pitched a third of an inning. Drew Smith comes in. First, 4 balls hit off of Drew Smith were rockets. Some were right at fielders. One of them was that Harrison Bader play that I just alluded to here just a second ago. But listen, this guy, Adrian Hauser, has been such a jolt of fresh air, a breath of fresh air, I should say, for this Mets bullpen, especially when Edwin Diaz was on the shelf, on the IL. Everybody else had to step up, and they were getting tired. They were getting exhausted. Part of it was injuries with no Rayleigh, no Diaz. Jorge Lopez gets DFA'd. Part of it is also the fact that the Mets pitchers, right, the 3 that I just named, really can't consistently go 6+ innings. But this has been such a great move in hindsight for the New York Mets. It was only a matter of time because of how he was performing as a starting pitcher. And you see here, in his last 5 outings, 13 innings pitched collectively. Only 2 earned runs in those 13 innings. 8 strikeouts and 4 walks. He is going to be a very big key to success for this Mets team if they want to sneak into a wild card spot. Listen, I didn't mention anything about the wild card, maybe minus in the first 1 minute of this stream, the first minute of this stream. Let's point out the obvious. because I don't want to surround this stream by talking about the wild card race. And I also don't want to surround any stream right now talking about the deadline. I want to talk about this team and how they performed. But the bottom line is they played well enough to move themselves to only 1.5 games out of the wild card. That is a fact. You have 6 teams in between the New York Mets right now. And I believe, I forget who holds that third wild card spot. I believe it's the Padres still. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but 6 teams in between the Mets and a third wild card spot right now. And the team that the Mets play, not this series, but the next one in the Chicago Cubs, the Mets are in a deadlock even stance right now in the wild card standings with the Chicago Cubs at 1.5 back. I'm not trying to sell you that this is a mountain to climb to become one of those wild card teams, because there's a whole bunch of teams in between there to leap, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But if the Mets are going to perform and lock down games and sort of bridge this starting pitching, right, with a lead, hopefully, over to the later inning guys in the bullpen, this guy right here, Adrian Houser, is going to play a crucial role, whether it's the 5th inning or the 6th inning that he comes in to sort of relieve the starter. He's going to play a crucial role. And if he is continuing to put up this sort of success that we've seen here recently in the bullpen, that maybe takes pressure off of Mendoza with not having to rely too much on a Drew Smith or a Jake Diekman or an Adam Ottavino. It does wonders for your manager to have options. So, yes, this was David Stern's guy. No, it didn't work out in the starting rotation like we all had hoped and planned for. But you know what? You pivot and you know the strengths of your team and your personnel. And that's exactly what's happening here with Adrian Houser. And he may not be the last Mets starting pitcher to make their transition over to the bullpen. We might see Sean Manaea go to the bullpen. We might even see David Peterson go to the bullpen, depending on how this rotation shakes out and who they might want to come up from the minor league system when that time comes. So be prepared. That's all I'm saying. And like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about this slide. Got to give flowers where flowers are due. Adrian Houser is great. And Brandon Nimmo, who's caught so much flack, especially since he moved into that 3-hole and didn't perform well, now is in the 2-hole, had himself a hell of a series against the San Diego Padres. 3 games, I should say, Nimmo posted 7 hits, 3 RBIs, and scored 4 runs just by himself. And this lineup is night and day different when Nimmo's performing, when he's getting on base, when he's not expanding his strike zone, than when he's not. Especially in that 2-hole. Because JD Martinez is following, and we all know the hot stretch that he's on. Then you got Pete Alonso. If Pete Alonso can turn it around, you got guys that are going to be on base for you. Because you know what Lindor is doing in that leadoff spot, just like Brandon Nimmo did when he was hitting leadoff? There's been almost no drop-off in terms of the on-base rate from those two guys. Because Francisco Lindor is working professional at-bats right now. Whether he's hitting the ball in the gaps, whether he's getting on via the single, or whether he's drawing a walk, he's getting on base. And he's turning that lineup over to Brandon Nimmo. And if he can get on base consistent like we saw in this Padres series, this lineup is going to be, I don't want to use the word lethal, but it's going to be a hell of a top 4 if all those guys are hitting. So I really hope that this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we see from Brandon Nimmo. I really do. Great series. I hope he carries that into Texas. I really do. But all right. 33 minutes on stream here. Like I said, don't want to go too much into this series because we will be talking about it later on the post game. Hopefully, if Rob can make it on stream. If Rob can't make it, maybe I'll go live for the solo post game, or I'll bring up a guest. I'll hit some people up and see if someone wants to come and talk some Mets baseball after the game. But we do have a game tonight. Fresh series kicks off versus the Texas Rangers. Like I said earlier, the defending world champs, they haven't been playing up to expectations. Their offense is More so hit or miss. They got 3 guys that really do scare you sometimes. I believe one of those is, what is his name? Josh Smith? I don't know the Texas Rangers lineup through and through, but Josh Smith, I think that's his name. Last name is Smith. First name is Josh. Please, someone help me out in the chat. He is actually hitting 294, one of their better hitters. Corey Seager obviously is going to be that consistent guy for them. And Marcus Semien with 40 RBIs is that, I guess, run producer for them in that lineup. So a little bit of a scary Texas Rangers lineup on paper, but like I said, what they've been producing in terms of the runs category, in terms of individual performances, especially as you get to the middle and bottom of that lineup, hasn't really been the same output that we saw from them consistently last season, especially in that playoff and World Series run. So we'll talk about this in just a second. I promised I'd get back to Brad's comment about potentially having Jose Iglesias start tonight instead of Jeff McNeil. I want to check real quick if the lineup's been posted, because like I said, I don't check Twitter during these streams, so I just want to make sure the lineup hasn't been posted, and I don't want to say something out of turn as I see Pete Alonso in his cowboy hat and the Texas tie with that big belt buckle there on my screen. I don't see any lineup posted right now, so I can go ahead and give this little insight as I was doing a little bit of digging on Mr. John Gray, who's had a phenomenal start to his season. I don't think of John Gray in any season. He's been in this league for just over 10 years now. He's a seasoned vet. I don't think of him as a top tier pitcher in this league whatsoever. But you see here, 2.17 ERA. He's had a lot of success. You go look at his Savant page. Really great distribution in terms of the actual 2 pitches that he uses in the majority, his four-seam fastball and his slider. He actually uses his slider at 3% higher of a clip than his four-seam fastball. So if you're the Mets lineup, expect to see a lot of sliders tonight. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I haven't looked at how this lineup produces and fares against the slider, but expect a lot of that tonight. But what I will say is that I saw the splits of Mr. John Gray's statistics here in the early goings of 2024 versus right-handed batters as opposed to left-handed batters. And lefties, right, with him being a right-handed pitcher, the matchup kind of plays out accurately. You always think of lefty versus righty as advantageous for the batter and vice versa. So lefties are actually hitting at a higher clip off of John Gray this season by about 20 points. I believe they're hitting 245 versus 225 or 227, anywhere between 18 to 20 points higher for lefties. Now, we all know the Mets love their matchups. Jose Iglesias has been routinely starting against left-handed pitchers, and then Jeff McNeil recently has been starting against the right-handers. If that trend continues, I would expect a Jeff McNeil start tonight, regardless of how he's been doing. He's been sneaking in a couple of hits here recently, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced with Jeff McNeil. It's going to take a whole lot more than that to be convinced with Jeff McNeil. So, for better or for worse, Brad, to answer your question, I had it starred here. I promised I'd get back to it. If I had to predict, I would expect Jeff McNeil to start. Now, I hope I'm wrong. But if I see the splits off of John Gray, and I know this analytics department for the New York Mets loves their matchups, lefty-righty versus righty-lefty, I would expect Jeff McNeil to get the start today. And I see a lot of people here talking about Jeff McNeil. Brad says no more McNeil. I agree with you, man. I agree with you. But you know what? He's here. He's on the team until further notice. And they seem to be platooning those guys at second base versus what kind of pitchers on the mound, whether it's a lefty or righty. So I'm just saying, if the trend continues, expect Jeff McNeil tonight. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. I'll say that. I'll caveat that. Let me get back into the comment section real quick. Salute to my guy, Carlos. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate everyone being here. A lot of comments here. I'm going to get to some of the comments. Explosive, making sure I know that the Padres have the third. That's what I thought. And the Cardinals have the second and the wild card. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here as well. I agree. This is a great comment, Brad. Every team ahead of us doesn't scare me. If the Mets play like they've been playing over the last couple of weeks ever since that team meeting, any one of those teams above the Mets in the wild card, whether it's the Cubs, the Giants, the Nationals, who we just swept, and they're coming back up here in a couple of weeks. I'll be at those games again in DC. They don't scare me. So all the more reason to not be scared of going out to Texas and just playing your game. No pressure on the Mets. There's really no pressure on the Mets right now. I'm gonna say that 10 times over. Lineup has good balance. Daniel saying AARP, aka Ottavino. Yeah. I mean, that guy is a whole separate discussion. I won't get into the weeds of Mr. Adam Ottavino. Yes, Josh Smith. That guy is a complete hitter. If you're David Peterson, you got to be wary of when this guy's coming up in the lineup. And you got to pitch accordingly to the guys around him. He's getting on base at a high clip, I believe around 340, 350 on base percentage, maybe even higher. He's hitting 294. He's not going to beat you with the long ball. Although, of course, me saying that, maybe he goes out there and hits a home run just to say F you to me tonight. But yeah, Josh Smith is a hell of a hitter. So you got to keep an eye on him and Mr. Seager. And obviously, Marcus Semien, who's always dangerous. But outside of those guys, you can maneuver around that lineup with the way they've been performing. Obviously, Jonah Heim had a great campaign last season, isn't really performing up to expectations from what we would expect from him so far this season. Nathaniel Lowe, another guy that can beat you with the long ball, but just hasn't this year so far. So they have talent, but they're just kind of underproducing right now. Really kind of Mets-esque when you talk about the back of the baseball card and the performances there. So, yeah, that's my takeaway. Ricardo, is there another sneaky bullpen arm in the minors like Nunez we can bring up? I mean, I'm not sure where he's at in the rehab process right now, but we've seen recently that Bryce Montes de Aca is going to be throwing. I think he's made some rehab starts already. That guy is a fireballer, obviously dealing with some arm issues. He threw like 103 miles per hour. Of course, in today's game, you're always going to have arm issues. But if anyone falters, if they decide to pull the plug on Adam Ottavino, maybe he goes out there and implodes a couple more times, I would watch out for Bryce Montes de Aca. And obviously, if you need that lefty back and you want to get rid of Jake Diekman at some point, now I'm not saying that you're going to and the Mets are going to. It's a little bit premature, but I'm trying to look into the future to answer your questions. Then you have Danny Young, and I would watch out for Bryce Montes de Aca. Those are the two guys that at the forefront of my mind, I would watch out for. But in terms of those two guys, I don't know. I'd have to look. But if they can replicate anything that Daniel Nunez has been replicating and performing like, then I take it because that guy is an absolute stud. And as you all know, he's my setup guy for Edwin Diaz for the foreseeable future until he proves otherwise. That's what I'll say. No, Christopher, no need to apologize. I agree. I see where you're coming from, but I just want to the reason why I'm saying it so many times is that, listen, everyone's always free to how they feel about this team and how they feel going into a series versus defending world champions. I'm never going to fault you for that. But what I'm saying is that for me personally speaking, I know a lot of people agree with this as well, is that there's no really reason to have worry or concern. But I agree, though, at surface level, us as Mets fans, we're always kind of wondering in the back of our head is like, are the Mets going to go back to playing Mets baseball that we've seen in the past couple of weeks? Are they going to go back to that version, or are they going to continue to ride this hot streak? So I get where you were coming from with that comment. Please, no need to apologize at all. Everyone is entitled to their opinion in this live chat. Only good thing about McNeil is he has more range than Iglesias. I'm assuming you're talking about defensively, Darren. And McNeil has looked better defensively. Made a nice sliding catch there in the later innings of one of the Padres games, I believe, and also has been turning more double plays up the middle with Francisco Lindor, which is good to see. But right now, it's not a question of whose bat has higher upside. It's definitely Jose Iglesias, but I hear you on the defensive front right there. Ricardo's saying Mets can beat all those teams. They blew games to the Giants, Diamondbacks, and Cubs where they were leading. Exactly. That's exactly what I said earlier on the stream as well. So, no, like I said, I'm not going to exhaust this series too much. We have this pitching matchup going today. David Peterson coming off of a game where he gave up 4 earned runs. You know what? Like I said, it's always going to be hit or miss with David Peterson. I'm not going to expect him to go and strike out 9 and go 6 or 7 innings. That's just not who David Peterson is. He struggles with his command at times. Maybe we might see 4 1/3, 4 2/3. I know it's frustrating, but that's why I said Adrian Hauser is not going to be the only guy that could transition to the bullpen. I think David Peterson has the makeup of more of a bullpen arm than he does a starter because he struggles putting hitters away, just like Ethan said earlier in the chat. So, like I said, watch out for that. But I really do hope that he's able to produce something at least competent tonight. And by competent, I just mean don't care if you give up 2 or 3 runs, keep your team in the ball game, please. That's all we ask. That's all we ask. But like I said, John Gray, really good off-speed run. Look at his Savant page. Night and day different than what he was producing last year with the Texas Rangers in 2023. Completely different picture here early on in 2024. Then you have in the middle game, Luis Severino versus Michael Lorenzen. That's going to be a very interesting pitching matchup because obviously Luis Severino right now in the starting rotation is the captain, the leader, the guy who, if you had to give the ball to in a crucial game, right? It's Luis Severino with the way he's performing right now. And I'm not shocked. I always was a proponent of Luis Severino. I had high hopes for him coming into the season, more so than a lot of other Mets fans. But when I look at this pitching matchup, it's interesting because I see another guy in Michael Lorenzen, who we were talking about in the later goings of the offseason. Oh, are we going to take a stab at Michael Lorenzen with that Kodai Senga injury? Because believe it or not, I believe he's still on the market by the time that Kodai Senga, the injury news came out. And you see what he's doing in Texas right now. Holy cow. What's happening? First, John Gray pitching to a 2.17 ERA. Completely different in 2023. Then you got Michael Lorenzen. Like, what's going on? I know Michael Lorenzen throws 7 pitches, which is awesome, but we've never seen this kind of version of Michael Lorenzen. Wow. So keep an eye on that pitching matchup. I'm very interested to see how that goes in the middle game. And obviously, Sean Manaea versus Andrew Heaney in game 3, the battle of the Southpaws. This is going to be a grinded out type of series. Like I said, the Mets are coming in on a hot streak, but we all know, especially in recent years, especially this year, the New York Mets seem to be the get-right game for a lot of teams. So let's hope that doesn't happen in Texas. Let's not go down that rabbit hole again. But yeah, I'm excited for this series, man. I think that if you're a Mets fan, you should be excited. On June 17th, we shouldn't be talking deadline. We shouldn't be talking sellers. We shouldn't be talking about how the season's already over and we're looking forward to football season. We shouldn't be talking about anything like that. Not with Steve Cohen in charge, not with David Stearns being the president of baseball operations, trying to bring this team back to life. Not with the team that we have on paper. I'm not telling you it's the best team on paper in the league or even top 5, but they're definitely serviceable than 4 games under 500 or even 10 games under 500, which we were just at a week and a half ago. Us as Mets fans should expect this type of baseball that we're getting, and it should excite fans, and I'm excited. There's no reason not to be excited. Mez, my guy, appreciate you. What's up to you? Appreciate you being here. I ought to be part of this coaching staff. You know what? I try to break this team down in a way that makes sense most to me. And in turn, I hope it makes sense to you all. Because this team is very hard to come up on here and talk about. Because at one point in the season, we're talking deadline, we're talking these guys stink, and now we're talking about good baseball. And we're trying to find that common ground, that middle ground here. So, listen, in the words of Brad right here, I'm hyped. I'm hyped. Enjoy good baseball right now because in a couple months, we don't know what kind of team we're going to be talking about. We don't know what kind of personnel we're going to be talking about after the deadline. Enjoy this team right now for what it is. And maybe they just so happen to convince the front office to not become sellers at the deadline. Because that's really the best and most realistic or I guess the best case scenario, right? As a fan of the game, I'm talking about in simple terms as a fan. We don't want to see this team prove to the front office why they should be sellers. Now, that's a whole different discussion in terms of if you buy into this core or not, because maybe a month sample size isn't going to do it for most of us in terms of buying back into this core, in terms of being winners. And I understand that whole argument. But in terms of just living in the moment, on June 17th, 2024, at 3:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, let's just enjoy the ride. That's my mantra. That's it. Mr. Nobody saying Grimace won't let us down. I had the whole spiel. Like I said, I didn't know who Grimace was. Apologies, but thanks are in order. Daniel in the chat had to let me in on who Grimace was. So I appreciate it. Thanks for the good luck. I know, Mez. I understand. Listen, I understand both sides of the coin. I'm not going to sit here and lie, but this team frustrated me so much at times this season that Mez will be begging to sell every day. And I understand the flip side of the coin. Listen, maybe the Mets and what they've done in the last 15 games isn't enough for everybody. It's not even enough for me to confidently sit here and tell you that I believe in this team 100%. But runs have to start somewhere. The Nationals World Series run in 2019 started somewhere. It started with whatever they went to begin the season over the first 50 games. I'm not saying this is going to happen to the Mets this season. I'm not going to go that far and say that. But that's like the side of the coin that I'm on, is that every run starts somewhere. But I completely get it, Mez. You are not alone in that camp. This Mets team has done a lot of emotional damage to a lot of Mets fans, not only this season, not only last season, but probably since more often than not than a lot of people in this chat have been alive, including myself. So I get it. There's this whole aura about this organization in that lens, but as a baseball fan, 162 games is a long season. Once that 162 is over, you get football. And I don't know about you all, but during football, I still miss baseball season. So I'm going to enjoy while I can. Like I said, I can't speak for everybody. I can't tell anybody how to fan. And I definitely respect if you're on the other side of the fence in terms of this Mets team and not believing and buying into it yet. But let's see what happens tonight. And let's take it one game at a time. Like I said, I'm not expecting an easy series. I'm not expecting an easy series at all here. At the end of the day, the Texas Rangers are World Series champions. They're reigning World Series champions. They got firepower in that lineup. And you see here, they got two guys that are overperforming for them so far to start 2024 off in Michael Lorenzen and John Gray, who's going tonight. Take the series. I always say it. We sat on the roundtable yesterday. Take game one and set the tone for yourself and set yourself up for success to take the series in game two. Or if you lose that, at worst case scenario, you get another crack at it in game three. That's all I want. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, the bottom line, end of story, and what I will finish up this stream with is this comment right here. Show grit and show fight. That's it. Make ball games competitive and make me want to turn on the TV consistently, night in and night out, to watch this team. Because at some points in this season, in 2024, just a few weeks ago, it was a struggle for me to grab the remote and turn the on button and turn it to MLB TV and watch this team. It was a struggle. I did it because I talk about this team on my platform, but it was a struggle because I was like, I don't want to see and I don't want to witness and spend 3 hours of my time watching what I just watched the other night. If it's going to be the whole same merry-go-round again. But this team is making me and a lot of other Mets fans in this Mets fan base want to turn that TV on and look forward to watching baseball in about 5 hours, a little less. Let's continue that. So I appreciate you all being here. That's pretty much going to wrap it up. Like I said, I didn't want to talk too much about this upcoming Rangers series. It was a little bit of a preview, kind of went into the starting pitching matchup tonight, talking about why we may see Jeff McNeil over Jose Iglesias. I know a lot of fans don't want to see that, but kind of giving some insight there in terms of the type of pitcher that John Gray is. But I appreciate you all being here. Like I said, it's a early Monday afternoon stream. I try to do these early streams as best as I can. And we'll see if we get on for a post game tonight. Turn those notifications on. Hit that thumbs up. And I'm going to actually end the live chat poll. This is your last opportunity to sort of vote in the poll right now about who's going to get the most strikeouts for this Mets pitching in this series. I'm going to end the poll right now, and Luis Severino won the poll. 62% of you all said Luis Severino gets the most strikeouts in this series. 20% Sean Manaea, 16% David Peterson. Okay, that's enough for me. Rambling on too much. I appreciate you all being here. Hit that thumbs up. We got about 50 people in the chat, 23 people on YouTube, only 15 likes on the stream. Please, if you are here, if you support the podcast, if you're subscribed, hit that thumbs up for me. I definitely appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And if you don't follow me on all my social media handles at CPNYSports on X and Instagram, same handle as my YouTube. Like I said, watched the roundtable last night. Hector, Hayden, Rob, myself, great content, great insight into our opinions and thoughts about the current state of the Mets. I know the roundtable has been gaining some steam, some popularity. I appreciate it. We all thank you for the support. So, as always, let's go Mets. Start this series off strong. We're going for 6 in a row. Bottom line, 1 game at a time, 6 in a row. We will see you all tonight, hopefully for the postgame. If not, tomorrow we will probably do another Mets Day After recap to talk about Game 1 that we see tonight. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.